have official documents from Microsoft that leaked that tell us it's going to be a hybrid console, and it's going to be hybrid because there's going to be actual compute that's available on the actual, in the console, but then it's also going to be AI, right? AI driven for power and everything, right? So AI is going to play a huge role. Xbox has already laid this out, and come on, open your eyes. Look at what's happening right now.
Yes.
Right? You watch the entire thing. It's all about AI. Even AMD got into AI, but NVIDIA for sure. They're really really pushing this. And, the world is pushing this, man. On Twitter, not some special AI company, on Twitter, they have a program called Grok, or X1 now, I think they called it. And that's how I made the thumbnail. It's all AI. You know what I'm saying? This is just AI is fucking here. This is a real thing that is happening. And this is the future. And when you look at a company like NVIDIA, who is, by the way, one of the biggest companies on the stock market, right? It's between them and Microsoft and, and Apple and Amazon, that group just keeps, and Tesla obviously keeps kind of going around, but they're up there. They were number one for a while. They were the first company to hit 3 trillion, if I'm not mistaken. And it's bro, they're going all in, and Microsoft is going on in. You see the fucking their Azure is being powered by NVIDIA. Starting, that's what they're doing as far as the AI component of it, right? This is the investments that are being made, right? This is what's happening. Right now we're in this amazing place in gaming where, we were there at the beginning, right? Or at least very close to the beginning for a lot of us. And we kind of get the benefit of being there. What seems like it's going to be a new beginning of what's possible in gaming.
Absolutely.
Right? The documents show that Microsoft was saying that they want to be, creating brand new experience that were never before possible. That's coming from AI. Right. In that same document, you can see in there, it says forward compatibility. Right. Again, that's a leaked document. And then what did Sarah Bond come out, mid last year talking about?
Technological leap.
In February, they said they're doing something that's going to be the biggest technological leap. They said that after that, she came out and said she's putting a special team together that's, focusing on forward compatibility.
Yes.
Funny that the new machine is supposed to have forward compatibility. Right.
Which by the way, this was the reason they kept, I forget when it was, they mentioned, why do they have it in the box if they're not using it? Because of the next box, right? And that's when it's all going to gel together and it's all going to make sense. They're preparing for what they're walking into. And I mean, it's pretty clear. I do think, like you said, part of it may be fear, but it is AI. That is the route that it's that they've been taking, right? Even, going to universities with madmen, they are all very aware that AI is the future.
These kids.
And yes, they are teaching them, and they're bringing up that it's not that AI will take your job, but you have to know how to use AI in order, because somebody has to do it. Somebody still has to do it. So you have to be prepared for what's coming. And I do think that this is it's the way, whether it's one of those things that whether you're happy with it or not, it's inevitable. So, and you see the changes that it makes. Like you mentioned, you talked about 2 million, and then 36 million of it were just by using AI. That's insane.
It is.
There are many advantages, and I think that in this industry it's a big deal.
Agreed, 100%.
It's going to be great for us as well, getting the games faster. I mean, just the developers going ahead and kind of getting these games together a lot faster.
Well, I mean, listen,
as it moves on, obviously,
it's clear based off of what NVIDIA is doing, right? It's clear that if PlayStation didn't suck and actually had capability of creating an AI platform that worked well, okay, if it wasn't trash like the pisser is, it's clear that, a lot of this is going to allow prices to not go crazy or get more bang for your buck, right?
Because, I mean, absolutely. Look at what's happening with the 5080, right?
The 5070.
5070.
That's $550.
How much? Yeah, that's insane.
For the power of a 4090 that we fucking bought for a lot of money. It's like a lot of fucking money. You know what I'm saying? And it's like $550 now. It's like, all right.
Yeah, that's wild.
You know,
But it always happens with tech. Once they kind of figure out a way to make it for cheaper, you know, I mean, the new one is still $2,000, but that's like $240.90s.
Facts. Somebody wrote that the PlayStation 5 Pro is better than the 5090.
Okay.
It's like, okay. All right. Well,
still going. They don't give up.
Correct.
Maybe that was sarcasm.
Maybe. But either way, so that all that to say, I wanted to lead into the rumor of the next gen console. So this is back from May 17th, 2024. Okay. This dude, Ghost of Hope, Call of Duty player, leaker, insider. Okay, so Call of Duty is his thing. Look at Johanna Faries, who was in charge of Call of Duty before she took over Blizzard, follows this dude, right? I mean, that's pretty interesting, right? So clearly there's something there with him. And back then, he said he's hearing from trusted sources that the next Xbox is planned to be released in late 2026. Very likely that COD 2026 is a day one release for it. Okay, so that's where he got the original sources from, his Call of Duty sources that are saying that they already know they're launching in 2026 on the next console, right? So he followed up. This is now January, right? So he quote tweeted that from May because it's come up again, right? So he says, take this with a huge grain of salt. I'm hearing that the next console is still coming in 2026 and will be called Xbox Prime. Still unclear if it's a code name or the actual name. I've heard Infinity Ward's next Call of Duty is still being considered a day one release for this. So obviously that's a huge rumor to keep coming back up.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like
in a rumor that, by the way, when you hear it, it makes sense.
Yes, it's a logical rumor. It's not like some weird ass thing. Like you're like, where how would that even happen, or why would that happen?
And you know, when you think about how much PlayStation fought for the marketing rights of Call of Duty, and it's like now it's yours, right? Xbox has Call of Duty. What better way to release a console than to go ahead and attach Call of Duty to it? It's such a big force. It's such a moving force that it's almost a no-brainer, right? This makes sense to me. I think it's true. I think it's the right move. Call of Duty's no joke, man. This is what Jim Ryan was screaming about. And I still believe that this is how they were planning to release the PlayStation 5 Pro, and all those plans crumbled. So 2026 with Call of Duty, for sure. The console with it makes sense.
It lines up to like just the timing. Right. It lines up with Xbox having their 25th anniversary. Right. Yes. Like that's basically they tried to do that, or that's where they ended up with they tried to do what was it on the 2000 to 2020? No. Okay. That was the first. They tried in 2020, they tried to launch Xbox and Halo together. Right. For the first time since the last time, right? That didn't happen, but they did drop Halo on its 20th anniversary, right?
They did.
So they obviously couldn't make that happen back then. What better way to kind of fix that scenario than to go ahead and launch the next console on the 25th anniversary, which is 2026, and go ahead and we already saw we've heard the rumors. We saw the actual footage from the new Halo studios that showed us the reboot of Halo, the first one. We saw the email messages that people try to downplay from the music guy from Halo messaging Phil like, hey, see what you're doing with this reboot, why don't you have us come on and we can help out? Like it's all happening. There's this reboot that's taking place. What better way to go ahead and just do a repeat of 2001, right? You launch your Xbox console with Halo. You go ahead, you launch 2026 with the new Halo. I mean, that would be great. I think Call of Duty is huge, obviously, but basically doesn't Call of Duty like pretty much always launch like with the console for the most part when there's a new one? Like they always launch around November. It's always like right around there.
Right around the time, yeah.
Anyway, so like that's not a weird thing. I just think for him, that's how he knew that this was happening, because he is a Call of Duty leaker. So before we go any further with this, I do want to get your guys' thoughts on this, and what do you think about how true this can possibly be? And that name, Xbox Prime, I think it's a dope name. I think that that's not going to help them with people fucking understanding which Xbox this is.
No.
So if that's the name they give it, that might be a little much. You know what I'm saying? I think. I also don't know where they go from here. I don't think you could do another series, whatever, because then they're just letters at this point. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I don't think you can continue that.
Yeah, then you're just going through the alphabet.
Yeah. So it has to be something that is definitive when you hear it, that you know that it's the new one. You could always do what Nintendo used to do and just say the new Xbox series. But yeah, so I don't know about Xbox Prime. It sounds dope in general because, you know, it's a nice Transformer reference. They own Activision now, so they've gotten the rights to the games. A bunch of, you know,
maybe it's just an implication to the transformation that they're going to be bringing to us with this new console, right? So
it's probably a code name.
Yes,
yeah, I like that. It's a code name for sure. I would lean towards being a code name and not the actual console name.
I'm hoping, Pharaoh, because I'm not big. I know you said you like the name CMoney. I'm not big on the name. I can see what it means, but I'm not crazy about it.
Facts.
Yeah, people probably call it the XP for short.
Yeah, XP. At least it's not the fucking pisser. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
So what do you think about the actual rumor, the idea that 2026 is the year? We've been hearing it for a long time, but, you know, again, it's popped up again, like reinforcing the same rumor. What do you think?
We've been hearing it for so long, and this generation feels very short, I guess, because of the pandemic that we went through. Doesn't quite feel as long as other generations, but I can see this being a perfect time for Xbox to release a new console, especially being that they plan on releasing the new handheld as well in the near future that we've been hearing about. So I think it's a perfect time. You got all your big studios that you want. You got your release cadence that you would like. You have the advancements in technology to where you're really in that sweet spot with the AI and everything like that. So you're in a really great spot to release a new piece of hardware, especially considering that your main competitor on the console side doesn't appear to be ready to release their piece of hardware yet. So you're like in this very sweet spot to where it does make sense to do that. So I can see that happening for sure.
Yeah, especially, I mean, the fact that they did forego like a mid-gen refresh, right? Like they did not jump into that pool and they're just like, nah, we're going to rock out with this because, again, we do know they're just PlayStation just playing catch up, right, to Xbox. But also, I just think when I think about the way that the Xbox as a brand was the strongest, right, was during their 360 era. Mm-hmm. I mean, frankly, the way that came about and why that success came was because they went ahead and they jumped first. You know, they did go first. They had a crap ton of amazing games that can only run there. Now, would that happen if they jump first now? No, most likely not. The games will still come to other places. They're just going to have like that exclusive on real next gen looking games. Now, maybe they're just going to make games that just run on that new tech. And the only way you're going to be able to, you know, be a part of that is if you're with Game Pass and you have the cloud. You know, maybe that's the only way. But kind of putting that out there where you are essentially, if you do this, you will be jumping 1, if not 2 years earlier than the earliest that PlayStation 6 or whatever that would be would come out. Right. Like,
yeah, I do think it would make a difference. I also think, you know, obviously we love the 360. It was such a big deal, right, for them to go ahead and get a head start. I think the problem with the 360 was what I call the pink eye, right? the ring of death, right? So that will leave anyone who's now facing a console that they invested in is dead, essentially, because it kind of happened to a lot or most people. When you hit that wall, a lot of people, I'm sure, said, you know what, instead of getting another one, what I'm going to go ahead and do is kind of move on and go ahead and get a PlayStation. I think enough time has gone by where, you know, especially with Game Pass, the curiosity kicks in and not just the games, but the trust back on the box, right? They had, they have enough time that has gone by for people to feel like confident that this is not going to go ahead and take place again. So, it was a big mess up. And a big mess that took place. And I do think going ahead and getting a jump start, it will, especially considering the fact that PlayStation is out here saying for 10 years, we're not going to go ahead and release a new box. And you have all these games coming out. You want the new tech. You put Call of Duty next to it. And it pushes the box. And it used to, again, like I said before, that's why they wanted the marketing rights with PlayStation. They wanted to go ahead and sell those bundles. So it is going to go ahead and change things. You brought up Halo. And yes, people know that Halo is on Xbox. And it would be an amazing moment, especially for Xbox fans. But it is an Xbox exclusive, and you come to the box to play Halo, right? So new people maybe will pop in. I don't know how many, but the people that have already not chosen the box to come in and play Halo, because Halo's been around for quite a while, may not go ahead and come in anyways. But putting Call of Duty there and seeing that this box just released and is going to have, you're going to be able to play the new Call of Duty with new tech, it's a big deal. G-Maybe, what's up, love? He says, if it was Prime, then people would associate it with Amazon's service. It was the first thing that came to my mind, G-Maybe. So we're on the same page. It can't be. And again, I'm not big on the name.
Facts. Razor Ultra says, if PlayStation released a new generation just 2 years after people bought the Pro, those customers would be pissed. Literally. Get it? Because it's pisser.
Pisser.
I like Razor.
I love that. But you know what? They wouldn't do a damn thing about it, and they would just go ahead and pay up. If they haven't caused an issue, if they haven't flipped tables over what the pisser actually is versus what they try to go ahead and show people to begin with. Again, the lie got a little big and it got out of control, but they were feeding lies. So the fact that no one has, there's not an issue, and they were out here trying to avoid a lawsuit. But the reality is that there could have been a lawsuit. This was messy. This was not what they went ahead and advertised. And we're not talking about a video game that you spend $60, $70 on. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I made a bad decision. This is a $700 console. So it's a big deal.
Agreed. The other thing to keep in mind, because I think when we think about the name, we're running with this idea that the generations are going to stay the same in the sense that they're going to make the same type of consoles.
Yes.
But we've heard in the past that most likely is not going to be. Looks like they're going to go back to one console that sits under your TV, and that the smaller console, or like the S equivalent, is going to be the handheld, right? Or the portable version, or some, kind of version of that, which, would make the naming convention require, new branding to signify like, hey, this is a handheld versus, hey, this is your console that sits at home.
True.
Right? Because that is a something that we've have heard. And I think something that all of us think just makes sense, right? This idea of the handheld. During CES, which is live right now, it's full of handhelds, and more information keeps coming out. There's a lot going on with it, which I think is going to pertain to the next gen Xbox as well, with some of the stuff we're hearing from Steam and things like that. So
they have to be so careful with the handheld. It's such a delicate situation, because there are so many out there, and they have to create something that kind of just has the essence of everything that's great on each one, and also unique, right? So I do think that, based on what Phil has said, he's kind of tried them all, and he knows exactly what he's looking for. So I'm just wondering how cheap is what he's looking for going to be, right? So we'll see if that's the way that it's going to go ahead and play out. The S is going to be like the handheld, right? It depends if you obviously you will have to dock it. It'll have to be like the Switch for it to kind of get that feel of a console. So we'll see.
Agreed. Now, Fuzzy, are you there?
Yeah, I'm back. I'm sorry.
Okay. What do you think about the next gen coming in 2026, as we've had rumored in the past? What do you think of the name Xbox Prime? I think we all kind of agree that it's a code name, but I mean, what do you think about it? And then also the idea of what it's going to be, with the console versus handheld and all that fun stuff.
Well, I like the name. Although I'm assuming it's probably just a code name, much like Scarlet was for the series consoles. Although the individual names was, I think, Anaconda and Lockhart for the Series S and stuff. Scorpio wound up being called Scorpio to some extent. At least they had a Scorpio edition, but
they did.
Yeah, but I think because of Amazon, unless there's a lot of integration, which I don't think there will be. I mean, you'll be able to put like the Amazon Prime app on there to like watch movies and stuff, but I think that's probably where it stops. So I don't think they'll be able to bring it to market with the Prime name, just because that's so Amazon heavy. I can't see them doing it. But I'm still in favor of the name I want to give it, which is Nextbox, capital N, lowercase e, capital X, box, basically. Hopefully they give it something cool along those lines, or something that we will understand that it's the new generation, even though it seems more and more like generations aren't going to really matter as far as consoles. They're going to make sure that all of your stuff from the past as well as the future stuff works on the box, whether you stream it or what have you. But I think 2026, the holiday 2026 is, I won't say a guarantee, but I think it's pretty certain that we get a full-on console. That will be two consoles today, what the Series X is to the Xbox One kind of thing. I think we'll see that kind of jump. I think AI will be in the box. I think the handheld is separate from this. I think we get the handheld hopefully holiday 2025, so 1 year ahead, because I don't think you need as powerful of a chip in a handheld, because it can be at a lower resolution, and with upscaling being better and better and AI helping that, I think you can get a pretty decent gaming experience out of a handheld that might be less powerful than what comes in 2026. And I think even with a dock, it still doesn't have to be as powerful to look either almost as good or perform almost as good. Kind of like, the Series S to the X kind of thing. But I do think we'll be pleasantly surprised what they'll be able to pull off in a handheld. Like just seeing at CES how that Legion S, I guess it was.
Yeah, the Legion
the
S
one
Skull.
that's made for Steam. Yeah,
yeah,
they're only charging $500 for that. And if Xbox is able to pull off the same, whether it's subsidized or not, I don't care. It's affordable enough to fit my budget, so that's what counts. And if they can pull that off, which I think they can, I hope we see that holiday 2025. Even if the dock is sold separately and it's like $100 extra or whatever, so be it. But I think having a portable console that's on par or better than the Series S, but easier to program for, which I know a lot of people are like, oh, blame the Series S for this game and that game, and all the while the Steam Deck is a lower spec thing, and all of these games run on the Steam Deck. Now they may not run at 60, some may run at 30, but you take it wherever you want to go, and that's not something that's easy to do in the gaming streets these days. The better the hardware, typically you're not going to be able to unplug it from the wall and get that same performance. So yeah, I'm hoping they do a 2 SKU thing, but whatever Xbox Prime is, going to be something that has AI in there, has all of the features we love in our Series X, like quick resume and the smart delivery and all those good features, and then some. Because like from what I'm hearing, Windows 12 is supposed to have quick resume kind of built in as well. So even the PCs will be able to experience what we got to experience in the Series X, which is amazing when you're bouncing from game to game. But then they're also working for having Windows have its own software built scaler. So whether the chipset or the AI built into the box or the software itself or combinations thereof, we probably won't be able to tell the difference of a source 1080 image being upscaled to 4K, and then running at 60 to 120 frames. Maybe they have their own frame generation type of setup, and we never have to ever hear about a 30 frame game ever again on a console. But too many things there's too much smoke. Where there's smoke, there's fire. So I honestly believe 2026 is where they surprise Sony. And like people were saying, Sony isn't going to be able to do anything for at least a year or two, because I refuse to spend the $700 on the PS5 Pro, but if I did, I would be pissed if, something came out a year or so later. Like, that's why I fell off Sega after the Saturn. Like, I didn't get the Dreamcast because I was like, at the time I was much younger and it was, money I earned myself kind of thing. So going from the 32X and the Sega CD, I was kind of strapped for cash. And then they're like, oh, the Saturn. Oh, well, that looks cool. And it's all in one unit. I don't have to buy like accessories for it. And I get the Saturn, I'm happy with it. And then they're like, oh, by the way, Dreamcast. And I'm like, I just spent all this money on the Saturn. I'm like, no. And then that's when I got my PlayStation 1. But I can't imagine them, PlayStation that is, being able to respond for at least a year or two. And when they do, then more than likely Xbox will have a mid-gen refresh ready to cook them in a year afterwards. And I think at this point, diminishing returns is a thing in PCs at certain points, although we keep on getting new technology with this frame gen stuff. But I think with console, I don't think, a PS6 coming out a year or two after whatever Xbox releases in 2026 is going to be that much more of a noticeable improvement over what that console is. And I joked about it before when the PS5 Pro was announced. I was like, they should probably just withhold that and make that the PS6, because unless developers that didn't use the tools for the Series X and S to a great extent. I mean, there are some like Capcom and Ubisoft and a number of others like Sega that use the tools and get the games optimized and all the bells and whistles and ray tracing and all that stuff. But the smaller devs don't bother. So the PlayStation doing that, either the devs aren't supported, which it looks like they're not, because you got to turn the pisser off, or it's going to benefit or uplift the Series X, because then they'll finally see the tools of what Microsoft was trying to get them to do to optimize and stuff. Like, look at Larian Studios with Baldur's Gate 3. They tuned it to success, and it had a 20 or 30% performance bump for everything else. So it's like, I don't want Microsoft to be able to have to hold the hand of every dev outside of their and stuff like that. But I think whatever they have, which will probably be RDNA 4 for 2026, will be as good as it's going to get, and the PS6 isn't going to really do that much better. Sure, it might have more memory, but we remember how even having a faster hard drive or faster SSD didn't load games faster than the Xbox. Like, even without even using the series consoles were loading games in like 3 seconds compared to 4 seconds on the PS5 with the faster SSD. And then when you throw, quick resume into the equation, it takes that 3 second load and turns it into 1 second load. So it's like, I don't know. I think they jump. I wouldn't say jump the gun, but they jump ahead or leapfrog them. Launch in 2026. We already kind of got an idea of what they might have as a launch lineup. I'm still thinking, and bear in mind, I was looking at E-Day before it was named as Gear 6. And I was like, 2026 will be the year of the sixes. You're going to have which is now E-Day, Forza Horizon 6, and fingers crossed, knock on wood, maybe Elder Scrolls 6, and all intents and purposes, Grand Theft Auto 6 will probably be pushed to 2026. So it's going to be
wild, actually,
trifecta where you're going to have all these games coming out right at the same time as they release that console. Like, that's going to be a hell of a lineup. Even if they don't have the marketing for Grand Theft Auto 6, everybody's going to want to play it on the next Xbox, for the fact that it's probably going to be 60 frames or better compared to even the PS5 Pro at this moment. The best it's going to do is probably see 30 frames. But yeah, I think Xbox, even though it doesn't seem like they always want to do the kill move against Sony, I think this is kind of like the inevitable. They're like, we can't wait on Sony. We got so much stuff cooking in the oven. Plus, we got other stuff we want to do. They're going to go ahead and release that bad bad boy console in 2026 and blow people's
You know,
minds.
go ahead.
I would say that if GTA 6 is launching at the same time as the new Xbox, I don't think Take-Two would do anything but take the Xbox marketing because they want to show their game where it looks best at.
Yeah.
It will look best on the newest hardware.
That's possible. Yeah. That's possible. You know what's funny? Now that I'm thinking about this all the way through, I was very shocked that Outer Worlds 2 is dropping this year. 2025. And there was rumors that Clockwork Revolution might have dropped in 2025.
Yes.
There was also rumors that State of Decay 3 was going to drop in 2025, but they kind of pushed it to 2026. And I started thinking to myself, it's like, man, it's a lot of games dropping. Like, why would they push all of these games, that are similar, these RPGs and things like that? Even though they're different, but still. The idea is like, man, that's a lot of RPGs. But it's like, maybe now that COVID's all done and wrapped up, like they got to the point where these are like finishing up and they're like, they want to get them out because next gen is right here, right? So they're like, let's get these out and get them flipped going right into the next gen. Because you figure like Hellblade, right? Ninja Theory, whatever they're doing clearly is going to be for next gen, right? Every time a game drops, that studio is shifting
already,
over to their next gen project, right? Not to mention the ones that are already working on next gen projects. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's why they're kind of trying to get, like, let's just get them out. Fuck it. Like, let's get them out in 2025 because 2026 is going to be the year of next gen.
Yeah. At that point, and it does make sense. It's at that point you have to kind of just clean the house and reset, right? And obviously by resetting, we mean like what's coming out. You can't hold anything back essentially. And if you do, it may not look next gen.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think that'll be a big issue for GTA 6 though, because you really want to show your game looking its best, and if you got to show PS5 footage when there's a Xbox Series available, just
doesn't be a problem.
Yeah.
It'd be a waste. It'd be a waste of the marketing, right? Like you want to be able to show your thing at the in the best possible way. Now, the other thing to keep in mind with the name, could this be alluding to the kind of two-tiered console versus handheld? The Prime, as in Xbox Prime, as in Xbox Primary, like that's your main Xbox, like that's the main console, and then the other one will be secondary, right? That's the handheld.
Yeah,
possible.
It seems like there could be a relation there with the names. All right, so this was the actual, this is this guy, this is what he said, this is his leak. So he goes, and then from here, he quote tweeted himself yesterday and said, if this is real and I wasn't being lied to by my source, then should I expect lawyers at my door? LOL, not sure they legally can do anything though when I haven't signed an NDA. And then Jez responded, nah, because it's not true. So he goes over here and said, this is where it's like immediately it's like, okay, nah, because it's not true, right? But that's a big statement to say. So when I hear this, nah, because it's not true, that means everything is not true. Everything that's being said, right? But then over here, Joy says, so it's not called Xbox Prime, or that the console released in 2026 before the handheld. Then he says, just this whole thing is made up. There's no such thing as Xbox Prime. Hardware in 26 could happen. 12 months is a huge landing strip. So again, it's kind of like, well, like you're getting caught up on a code name. You know what I'm saying?
I love how for me right away, it's just like so quick to debunk what he's saying, right? Because it's not true. Obviously, he said if my source didn't lie to me, right? So it's like, don't they all come out here that their source told them some nonsense? And it's like, you're reliable, but who's to say this guy is not?
Yeah, I mean, it's just why put the blanket statement and then in the next, like, as soon as you get questioned on it, it's like, well, I mean, in 2026, something, it could happen in 2026. It's just the code name. There's no such thing as an Xbox Prime. Right? I mean, he's written articles himself that he knows that the next gen Xbox is happening. Like, it's just so weird. Like, is it defensive? Like, you think he got defensive, like to defend maybe his articles in the past? Like, if there was an Xbox Prime, I would know.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, maybe it is, and you just don't know about it, right? That's a possibility.
Jez has been on record saying that he has no sources in ABK. He's been on record saying that. I don't know if it's changed since he said that, but he has gone on record saying he has no sources at ABK. And this guy is a Call of Duty leaker who is followed by the ex-head of Call of Duty. She now runs Blizzard, but he got his source from Call of Duty. The fact that he heard that the next Infinity Ward Call of Duty is launching in 2026 alongside the new console. I feel like that's a different route for this rumor to come from, as opposed to just somebody saying at Xbox, like, yeah, we're making the next handheld and it's launching in 2026. This is more of a, yeah, we're working on a launch game for that system. Infinity Ward would know if they're working towards a launch game for the next system, because Xbox would have briefed them and told them what to expect and what to do so that they could take full advantage of said console, right? So even if they don't have like a dev kit per se, they would at least have, targets or, things that would give them an idea of what to expect from AI and things of that nature, right? Like, am I wrong? Or does the fact that he gets it from the Call of Duty side of things gives it a little more, legitness?
I think it opens up the possibility. And I think that Xbox is such a big publisher now that they don't necessarily have to send out, if they do have a new Xbox coming in 2026, they don't necessarily have to give third-party developers dev kits yet, because they have enough games that they make themselves to showcase next generation. And probably just like the Xbox One X, a lot of the previous generation games could probably just benefit from just having extra power. So they may not necessarily need the next gen features for you to still enjoy the benefits of having a next gen console and loading up a previous generation game. So I can see there being a world where dev kits aren't out in the wild. They're only internal, and there's a new console coming in 2026, and you'll only really be able to experience next generation games with Xbox titles for the first year or two.
I like that.
Do we think?
And it's true. They have so many studios. They have so much that they don't need to go ahead and go outside and kind of have things potentially leak in a way that they wouldn't want them to. Even though they were the ones who send out all the emails and everything, and that came from them. So agreed.
Yeah, I mean, do we think that realistically speaking, because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like we're at a different time, right, with the way games are and how much they cost and all that shit. Obviously, Xbox has Game Pass, but still, just in like the idea of it is like, do you launch and have Call of Duty as a launch title and have Halo as a launch title and, Gears as a launch? You know what I'm saying? Like, do you clusterfuck it and get like a whole bunch of games, to drop on day one?
What better way to go ahead and make people like force the hand to sign up for Game Pass? Right now, they use kind of like the excuse of like, oh, games here and there. Maybe the following games I'm not into or I don't want. When you go ahead and kind of bunch them up together, something for everyone, a nice bulk. It's like, are you going to go ahead and buy these individually? Are you going to go ahead and pick up 2 or 3 of these games? And like, when you can just sign up for Game Pass for a year, it's a bit silly. You got to kind of overwhelm the situation at times, especially with a brand new console. I'm sure the purchase of the brand new console will come with, like, right now you get X amount of time with a free Game Pass. I'm sure they'll set it up in that way as well.
Possibly. The only thing you run the risk is if you launch a bunch of games at the same time with Game Pass, you run the risk of somebody just subbing for a month or two.
You can't
everything out.
Go ahead and bulk them up if you're not ready for next, right? So for what's next, obviously they will have to have a lineup and kind of everything scheduled out with how they're going to go ahead and move forward. If we're talking about November, I'm still hoping for those a nice big December game. So I don't know. Before, I feel like Game Pass is such a sweet deal that is very easy to ignore and not know what's in there. It's like quick resume, right? You don't know until you have it. I think to go ahead and populate it with a nice amount of new games, it will make it very difficult after spending that time in there, especially if you're interested in all of the games that went in there, to go ahead, pack up and leave and say, well, now I'm going to go back to paying for my games.
I would say 3 games you bulk up for Xbox's new release. One of them is third party, which is Grand Theft Auto, Call of Duty, and Forza. I don't think you would do anything other than those 3, like Forza Horizon 6. I don't think you do 2 shooters together.
I mean, that's possible.
I mean, they've been doing like Ara and Age of Mythology. It came out back to back. I think they kind of have been a little fearless when it comes to just putting out their games and content.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit different though, because R is only on PC and Age is available on PC and console. So I think that's a little different. Slightly.
True.
A little bit.
Yeah, let's take a second and realize how sad right now the ponies who are watching this must be hearing us have a conversation about games and where they're going to launch because we have too many games. It's like, you put it here, you put it there, can you imagine the tears that are going down? Like how fast
can tears drop? Like that is
seriously.
I feel like they broke new records.
Like it's just like a constant stream.
Especially after their show last night.
I feel like right now they're down bad right now.
Yeah.
Listening to this conversation. You know what I'm saying? Just the fact that they're saying to themselves, like, why don't we have any games? How come these freaking Xbox people get to have conversations about which game is going to drop when? Meanwhile, they're sitting over there just staring off to a black abyss. Nothing in their future. We saw all the trailers. We knew these games were coming. We were amped for these games. And while we waited, we kept hearing the ponies mock the fact that, oh yeah, another year, of course, another year. This is going to be the year. That's right, another year. And it's like, we had that all the way up to the year of Redfall and Starfield. They got delayed. That year didn't have big IP, even though Xbox did release high quality games that year. They weren't the big Redfall and Starfield. And then the following year we got Redfall and Starfield, but that still didn't give us the onslaught of huge games. We had those 2 big games and then smaller stuff surrounding it. And then we had Hellblade that started the year. I mean, the start of the year is in May. Power World started the year. But as far as first party, you kind of had a first party first half that was essentially Hellblade. And then it wasn't really to the back half of the year that we had and again, just talking strictly first party, but the back half of the year, we had this onslaught, right? Like that was the beginning, right? So the back half of 2024 is where this all started, and we're rolling right into 2025, keeping that same momentum, right? Going into Avowed. We don't know if, we should be hearing soon about the direct. We don't know if we're going to get a January drop of some type of game that's coming out, but we know for sure February. We already have rumors that South of Midnight is in April, May. We already have rumors that May, June is going to be Doom, the Dark Ages. There's so much, and then obviously we know Outer Worlds and Fable are coming after that. So it's like that time is over for us. There's no more waiting for this golden era to actually be able to enjoy these games we've been waiting for. We have them all, and we get the excitement of the future, right? That's the combo that we have, where PlayStation right now has their ponies in the exact opposite situation. They have nothing to play right now and be excited for right now, and they have no future to be excited for. So it's like they're in the exact opposite scenario that we're in. It's beautiful.
And listen, they can't see a future. There's not a future, and there may never be a future for PlayStation.
Agreed. Okay, so as far as this part is concerned that we spoke about here, Fuzzy, what do you think about it not being true versus being true and everything else that Jez said over here?
I like that Jez breaks some stories sometimes, but there have been times where others have found stuff out either before him or otherwise, and he'll be like, oh, it's not true. And then he'll be like, oh, I retract that, and we'll see. I think there is a console in the works. I think it makes sense for Activision or, for Infinity Ward to have what they would be working on as far as the next gen console, especially considering they didn't do a mid-gen refresh. Like, we saw the court documents that they were looking at certain things, and like Phil had to come out later and explain, things can change. The mid-gen is no longer a consideration, and that left the door open for them talking about, moving towards the next generation console. And then with Sarah Bond talking about it's going to be the biggest technical leap, we know that they're working on something. They wouldn't mention something if their engineers like Jason Ronald wasn't working on something, or at least in the early phases of working on something. But I think they're much further along than that, because typically in this hardware business, when they release a console, they're already halfway into the R&D for the next one. So
yeah,
I would have to believe that, Infinity Ward probably already had this, and now their focus is how much more of an uplift this is going to be over the series consoles, because they got to make sure it runs on the series consoles, just like Infinity Ward has to make sure, at least not necessarily for the current title that they're working on, but like all the previous ones had to work on Xbox One and PS4. So if this next console is going to be the cutoff for the PS4 and the Xbox One, they're going to make sure that this next console is going to, wow people to do that upgrade, to, get them out of their comfort zone. I mean, if Grand Theft Auto 6 doesn't do that, Call of Duty sure as heck will. And I think that there's too much smoke just by all of the things, like you said, the leaked emails, the conversations, or the business update where things like that were mentioned. So it's like something's there, something that they're working on. They're now first party, so they got to tweak this as best they can to make it look best on their home platform. I mean, it has to run on the other platforms, but they want to make sure it looks best on their platform, especially if it's going to be for a launch title. I think there's something there. I think whoever Jez is talking to may not have clued him in just yet, or maybe it is that much of a secret, because remember, PlayStation had joked about, well, we're not going to give them the next console. If they take over Activision, we would have to withhold our console so they don't have internal secret. Like, no, you're not going to do that, Sony, because you'd be, shooting yourself in your own foot kind of deal. But we know these things they tend to be very secretive. So they're probably, at least on the Microsoft, executive end of things, they're probably trying to figure out who's the mole. Because remember, there used to be a lot more leaks from Xbox, and they've tightened up their ship as far as stuff. Now, the stuff that does leak tends to be stuff that they want to leak or make it appear like it's a leak. But it used to be before, like you would have like exact dates and documents and what Phil ate for lunch kind of stuff in the past. And now it's more like, hey, there's a code name for this game and that game. But it almost seems like, hey, that's like to get people excited about what's next for this showcase, or what, like, we just got a game and they're already talking about, 2 new projects by this team, or Machine Games has a second team spun up so they can do Indiana Jones and Wolfenstein. Like the leaks that happen now are like intentional. And I don't think this was an intentional one, because I still think they want to catch Sony off guard, where the launch lineup and it's kind of hard for them to kind of space things out, because I don't know if you, like, normally you wouldn't have a Gears and a Halo launch the same year. Like, you'd want to put one maybe as the launch title and then one as the follow-up. But they got so many things in the pipeline. Like, they probably could turn around and do another Gears game shortly after. So it's like, you know what? It's ready. Go ahead and release it. Show all the bells and whistles. So that way, if there's Gears fans out there that may not be Halo fans, because some people lean more Gears than Halo, they'll pick up the console. And then for those that lean more Halo than Gears, they'll pick up the console, and they'll have something.
It would be a slam.
So
big splash.
Yeah, I think there's a lot. Well, there's too much smoke for this to be a nothing burger kind of thing. I think I'm curious to see what this Jason Ronald interview is going to be, but I think there's too much in the works for this to be made up or false, or they've probably kept some secrets from Jez in the past, and I think this might have been one that got a little bit of a leak early, and then he'll find out like next week that they've been tweaking that new hardware for the past 2 years as far as getting the next Call of Duty ready for launch in 26. Oh, by the way, also Halo and E-Day are going to be there too. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a lot of excitement around this, and again, I'm really excited by the idea that we are approaching what I feel that I honestly feel is going to be the first big transformation of gaming as far as what we're actually playing, with the way AI is going to be able to be a part of the world, with conversations being, different, like being things that we never thought that they would do, and having AI actually react. Like open world games, I think are going to be mind blowing. Games where you have conversations that are supposed to be, your stories are going to be, take it to the next level. Like imagine, it's not just the decisions you made to go left or right or to kill or die, but choices that you made because you spoke it and it heard it and it talked back to you, or there's so many variations of this stuff out there, man. Like we're going into an amazing time, and I love the fact that Xbox is leading the way, right? They're leading the way. All the excitement in gaming is surrounding Xbox, just what it is. So, and as far as like this leak, honestly, I still think that because this guy's getting his leak from Call of Duty, he's a known Call of Duty leaker. This is an ABK leak from a studio that is working on the next gen version of a game that's going to launch alongside the next gen console. For me, it makes sense why Jez wouldn't know it.